Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's Brian and Jim here with DrinkABeerandPlayAGame, and today we're continuing our look at the Capcom games with Ducktales for the NES.
Released in 1989, this was developed and published by Capcom. It came out on the NES and the Game Boy. In Japan, it's known as Wanpaku Daku Yumibuke. Ow! It's a good bit!
It's not a good bit!
It's a bit.
We already established you lack discipline.
I'm not getting into that again. Anyway, this is widely regarded to be one of the best NES games of all time, one of the best Disney games, and, well, there's a lot of hype behind it, so let's see if it lives up.
As I mentioned in the Mega Man 2 review, Capcom has a very unique style that you can just tell when you're playing its games, and DuckTales is no exception. There are a ton of bright colors. Every level looks completely different than the previous, and just like Mega Man, each level is properly themed for the boss that you're going to fight. What we really appreciate is the enemy varieties and just the overall kind of goofiness. Nothing is taken too seriously. Most things are duck themed or, really mimic the Disney license that they got for this game. And you know what? Jim and I appreciated it. The animations are all simplistic, they're all done really well. You even have some enemies here like the snake or some of the bats that they look good just standing still. So honestly, there's not a whole lot to complain about. Considering that it's an NES game and for the time it came out, it looks pretty damn good. And in our eyes, this looks even better than Mega Man, so we both gave it a 9. As far as beer, I'm not going to add any. This game offered enough variety from each level to make each experience look completely different.
Ah, the sound. Well, this one I can keep quick. Normally we'd be a little bit more nitpicky, but this is one of the best 8-bit soundtracks you're ever going to hear. So for that reason alone, we gave it 10s. Look, I know there's not a lot of sound effects here, but the music really does live up to the hype and why everyone loves it so goddamn much. All the tracks are memorable, all of them are so well composed. It's 10s. Beers, you don't need any.
What about the moon?
Do I really have to mention the moon at this point?
Mention the moon.
Yes, the moon is amazing. It's one of the... It's beautiful, alright? It's goddamn beautiful. Brings a tear to my goddamn eye.
It's the best track.
Yes it is.
The moon.
Can we move on now?
The control. This is the one area where, once again, I'm sure Jim and I are going to eat a big bowl of shit from their fans, but hear us out. It's a very simplistic control scheme. You jump, or you swing your cane. Now, to do each action requires a little bit more finesse than you would think from such a simplistic idea. But here's our main issue. The attack button, instead of just being the attack button, you have to hold down and charge up in order to do it. That's all well and good, but why couldn't they just make it a one-hit button? And the jumping goes into this kind of pogo motion that if you hold down, once again, you charge it so you can jump higher. And that's not uncommon for a lot of NES games where if you just hold down the jump button, you might jump a little bit higher. But it honestly took us a little bit of getting used to, and on some of the levels where you need your jumps to be pretty perfect, it can get a little bit annoying. For us, that was just something we didn't enjoy as much with the game. It doesn't take terribly long to get used to controls, but it's enough that with such a game that already is so simplistic, why did they have to go ahead and complicate it so much? So, when it comes to scores, I gave it a 7, Jim gave it a 6. And as far as beers, I'm gonna add 2 for the jump and the attack. Why did they have to go and complicate it just by that little bit?
The gameplay. Alright, the basic gist of the game is you're going around between these 5 different parts of the world to collect treasures. And you collect a bunch of treasures through a number of ways, either by massive exploration and getting these special treasures by beating bosses. The game has a real non-linear style, which, let's be honest, isn't the most common thing for the era. So it's a cool little mechanic, and in certain stages you need to get vital items, so you have to go to another stage before you can warp back to the actual stage. There's some cool ideas there. The game overall, difficulty-wise, is simple, though if you don't know what you're doing, you're probably going to die a lot before you really get the feel of everything. A major gripe for a lot of people is the pogo mechanic. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't like it as much as most people do. Sometimes the enemy hitboxes can be really precise, way more precise than you would ever think they were, and there can be some frustrating platforming moments as well. The boss fights are all generally really simple. They have very simple patterns, it doesn't take a lot to beat them. they're probably the easiest part of the game. You do get some helper characters from the cartoon show, which is cool, and you have a final level you unlock once you get all the treasures, and you have one of 3 endings, which is very nice. So, it's a game that it seems to have a lot of love and hate in the world. Mostly love, but some people really don't like it. And I'm not going to say I'm in that club and I can appreciate, the game for what it is, but I don't know, something about it keeps me from liking it as much as most people say. With all that being said, it's still a very fun, very solid platformer, so we both gave it 7s. And when it comes to beer, I'm just going to add, you know what, we haven't drunk enough yet, so I'll add 2 beers. One for the annoying pogo mechanic, and one for the very cool non-linear nature of it.
So unlike the majority of the games we've been reviewing for the past couple months, this game actually has some pretty decent originality to it. First and foremost, this was the first game based on Ducktales, and that was a big deal. And as we've already mentioned, the pogo mechanic, the non-linear style, this game threw a whole bunch of conventions at you that, while it may not have invented them, it felt like a new experience. And similar to the Mega Man games, the non-linear order in which you can pick the levels, and the interconnectivity of needing a key from one level to be able to proceed further in another, that was a neat little feature. These are all things we didn't see that common. Of course, nowadays, you've kind of seen it all, but keeping all that in mind, we had to give it 6s. We appreciate everything they threw into this game, and clearly the people who developed it weren't being lazy and weren't just going to give you another run-of-the-mill platformer. They wanted to put their touch on this game, so we appreciate that. When it comes to beers, I'm not going to add any, considering the time and how many other games were out, and this game still manages to be in a lot of people's top 10s when it comes to favorite NES games, and I understand why.
So the replayability I can keep kind of short, because we've already gone over it for the most part. You get 3 different endings, and you can go about the game in a number of different ways because of how non-linear it is. So you can change up your play style and your experience every time, for the most part. Anyway, we wound up giving it 6s. And when it comes to beer, I'll just add, 1 beer for the 3 endings. Why not?
Overall, this is a good game. And this is a game Jim and I are a little confused at just how revered it is in so many gamers' eyes. And being completely honest with everyone, we didn't grow up playing this. Before this review, neither of us played this game, so we kind of came at it with open eyes. I managed to go through and beat the whole game, and honestly, once I got it down, I realized, wow, this game is really easy. I think one of the most disappointing things for me personally was you get through this really crazy non-linear level where you're trying to explore, and you come to a boss that's the easiest part of the game. Each time, that felt a little disappointing. I like a little more challenge in my boss fights. But hey, I can understand. If you got 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and you've played this game, you're going to breeze through it. Some people can, I think, beat this game in as quick as 10 minutes, probably quicker than that. We fully understand the love for this game, but without the nostalgia of growing up and playing it all the time,
It's good.
It's still good, just not perfect. So we both gave it a 7. Well above average, and the soundtrack is honestly one of the things that will always keep it iconic in the NES library. When we combined all of our scores together, it rounds out to a 7.3. Still a great score, and obviously it's a game that if you haven't played by now, you should go out and give it a try, and tell us what you think about it. When it comes to beer pairing, I had to find a beer that would match the Scrooge McDuck style, so I went with the Treasure Fest from Heavy Seas Beer. This is their Oktoberfest lager. It comes in at 6% and it is damn delicious. Might not be the best beer out there, but I'll tell you one thing, it is really easy to drink. So you can easily blast through a 6-pack while you beat this game, because I promise you, it's not going to take you very long. But remember to drink your beers and play your games responsibly. As always, guys, thanks for checking out this video, and if you enjoyed it, make sure you give us a thumbs up, leave some comments, or better yet, why not subscribe? Till next time, guys, cheers.